Welcome back to the On a Yellow podcast, episode 6, which we've named G.O.A.T. And our cover athlete today is Lionel Messi. So, Zach, do you want to talk about why Lionel Messi is our cover athlete?
Lionel Messi recently signed a brand new 3-year contract at Inter Miami, and that contract will see him at least. There's only one guaranteed year on the contract with 2 option years, but that 1 year will at least see him play into next season when they get their new stadium, and something that I think will really set that team up even further because they only play at a temporary stadium currently.
Well, I mean, Messi's influence on the game in North America is huge, and I think that signing is huge.
Well, it's massive for not even just Inter Miami. It's massive for the whole league because you get so many more people to watch when you have a player of that caliber that's so well loved across the entire world. It brings so many more sets of eyes to your show.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that maybe the league even pressured Inter Miami to make sure they could get that signing done so that they can keep their viewership numbers where they are.
Well, yeah, I mean, viewership numbers, but also that also leads into the World Cup coming in 2026, where obviously we want to grow the game. And, you know, part of growing the game, especially with the MLS, it's kind of seen as that retirement league, but the growing the game part in North America is bringing in the players that obviously are older in age and they can't obviously compete in the top 5 leagues in Europe, but they come to North America and they have a ball of a time. I mean, look at Muller right now at the Vancouver Whitecaps. He's having
Son at LAFC.
Exactly.
He's playing great too.
Exactly. And I mean, the league's seen so much greats from Gareth Bale. I mean, Marco Reus is playing for them right now. Obviously Beckham played. And all these big players, Ibrahimovic, and, you know, it's kind of grown the game in North America. And I think that's really important. I mean, obviously we live in North America, so to have the game grown here could increase everything for us, from the caliber of play to even just how we train youth to grow the game here. And maybe make our teams, I mean, Mexico and the United States are always really pretty good, but you make Canada a leading nation within North America and one that goes into an international competition and can make it past the group stage. And I think that's something that I really strive for, but it's also something that with these players coming in, it's a kind of a first step in creating an environment where the game can grow where it is in Europe.
And I think that's really helped by having a manager that wants that same thing with Jesse Marsch.
Yep.
He's very committed, and he's very committed to developing the program around Canadian football. And you can see that with him reaching out to all the dual national players, trying to bring in those talents to the team, develop us into one of those top nations that's feared on the world stage.
Yep.
And I think just hosting a World Cup can create so much more excitement around soccer and football in Canada, where you could see the youth numbers are already very high for the soccer, but you could see a really big spike in the coming years.
Yep.
And with that, I think that has to mean increased youth academy infrastructure between every single team in Canada.
Yeah, the influence, you know, of these big players, of the manager at Canada, have really shown that Canada is driven to becoming a nation, a footballing nation, but also in the future can become a footballing nation. Well, let's talk about the footballing league, or the football league within Canada, the Canadian Premier League. There's been some dramatic events. Obviously, we're in playoffs now because of the winter that is looming. What's your thoughts on the CPL and just the Cavalry, which is our team?
In general, I don't love the playoff format that we have in the league, where teams, the first place and second place team, they essentially, if they lose that first match, they're guaranteed at least a second chance to get back into the final.
Mm-hmm.
which you love if you're one of those top two teams,
Yeah.
but it makes it so much more difficult for any sort of underdog story to take place. And it's kind of even happened even with the format
Yeah.
where it allows that fifth place team to make the playoffs, but they immediately got eliminated in the first round, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure. And then the fourth place team got eliminated by the third place team. So I think it's a league that still needs some development.
Yeah.
That can see, more teams in the league having success
Yeah.
year in, year out, instead of just, the Forges and the Cavalries winning everything. But this year could be Atletico Ottawa's year, as they've already punched their ticket to the final with a 2-1 win over Forge. It's a bit of an upset there. And after the match, the Forge coach, Bobby Simeotis, was a bit upset at the refereeing and said that the league needs VAR. Do you agree with his comments there?
I mean, to get VAR, there's a lot of leagues that have it, and there's a lot of leagues that don't have it. And I mean, the caliber, I think, of our league in Canada is not needing of a VAR system. VAR takes a lot of time and a lot of money, and it's just that money could be going somewhere else in the league. You said about growing the league. Obviously, the playoff system isn't great, but I think the playoff system isn't great because the CPL doesn't have enough teams in it for the playoff to work. I mean, you look at any other closed system league, whether it is football or whether it is even baseball or hockey, you look at these leagues that are closed systems and they have a playoff system put into place, right? The CPL's playoff system doesn't really work because, I mean, it's weird, right? So Atletico Ottawa punches their ticket to the final. They beat Forge, but Forge isn't actually out. So Forge actually plays the third and fourth place teams, right? Obviously, this makes sense because if it's 1 and 2 playing each other and 3 and 4 playing each other, obviously it's kind of not fair because the third place team that's usually pretty good is playing against the fourth place team, which is not as good in my opinion. And I just think it's, well, obviously not fair for the team in the 1 and 2 bracket that loses. It's not fair for them to be just out of the competition, right? But going on to, that VAR, I don't think VAR is needed for a league like this. There's other places we can put our money into. Like I said earlier, we can be getting more teams, or we can just, I don't know, change the playoff system around, or make it, like, I don't know. It's hard to say because it's so new. Like, it's only been here since 2018, I believe, the league. So the league is very new comparatively to the other leagues in the world. And I think it's just something that within Canada, we need to really, I just think we just have to grow this league first, broadcasting wise and just otherwise. Because, like, to watch the league, it's really weird as well. Like, we have to use one soccer in Canada.
Well, you can get more games this year on TSN.
Yeah.
They have at least, I think, 1 or 2 every week on TSN in some way.
So what's your thoughts on this whole VAR kind of debacle? I don't know. I think the manager is just angry. I think he's angry about losing, and he says certain things that happened in the game could have been, disallowed with a VAR system. But obviously the bigger problems are growing the league, right?
I think having a VAR system would be beneficial, but I don't think it is the number one priority for them at this point.
Yep.
Just based off of the financial means to implement that at every team's stadium.
Exactly.
Doesn't make sense for them where they are so early into their development, even because the league's not guaranteed to stick around, only 7 years in. They have to be very smart with how they use that money.
Yep.
And I think with adding FC Supra for next season and having 9 teams in the league, we could see a 6-team playoff format.
Yep.
Where the 1 and 2 teams get buys, and then, the 3 team plays the 6 team. And then that seems like a little bit more fair of a playoff, because if that 1 or 2 team does lose, then they are actually out.
Mm-hmm.
And it punishes them for not winning.
Yep.
Whereas the current system, I feel like it's a slap on the wrist because you just get another chance against an easier team to get right back into that final.
Exactly.
So I think with more teams, as you can see with with MLS, NHL, NFL, any of those leagues where they have like 30 teams in them,
Yep.
the playoff systems are a lot more flushed out and make a lot more sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just more teams in general, and maybe even bringing back an Edmonton team
Exactly.
could, really help the league out in terms of getting more eyes on the league in the country
Mm-hmm.
and improving the leagues, like how the league functions within itself, and maybe more rivalries, more people that
Yep.
have like deeper connections to the league
Mm-hmm.
can help them stick around, and then maybe in the future add that VAR system.
Yeah, because obviously there is rivalries within the CPL, but I think the problem with the Canadian Premier League is it's so new, and the rivalries aren't as deep as the other leagues within the world. Obviously, the Cavalry, we don't like the Forge, nor do we like Atletico Ottawa. These are two teams that we don't like, but that being said, I've not seen a single Forge. Maybe I've seen like 2 Forge jerseys when we play, right? A majority of the home games, like you don't have a traveling, like that much of traveling ultras. Our ultras, the foot soldiers do, I believe.
They go to Vancouver
Yeah,
at the farthest.
yeah.
They don't really go any further than
I
that.
think part
It's just
in that,
because I think the country's so
it's
big
so large, right?
that
Yeah.
if you need more teams in both sides
Yep.
that can really drive that.
Yeah.
And then maybe in the future you would see FC Superfans at a
Yeah.
Pacific game, even
Yeah.
though that's such a far travel
Yeah.
in terms of distance and just hours. You would think maybe in the future there would be traveling fans
Yep.
that could, even further develop the league.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about this league. Obviously, we talked about the dramatic fashions in the Atletico Ottawa game and the Forge game, or the Atletico Ottawa v Forge game. I want to talk about the Cavalry. Obviously, the Cavalry is our team.
They had
Now.
a dominant
Yeah.
performance over fourth place York in the I don't know what the quarterfinal, I guess, because there's only one.
It's weird, yeah.
But Tobias Warszewski kind of looked again like the guy that we knew him from last season that
Yeah.
was missing I feel like for a lot of this season. And I think it's good to see him putting the ball in the net and having fun doing that. So maybe he sticks to that kind of position.
Yeah.
And I think someone who also played very well in that game was Kanija Elva. He actually got the highest rating according to FOTMob with an 8.7. He had assists on both of Warszewski's goals. So I think maybe like a strike duo,
Yep.
or you play Elva as the cam, which I was playing the other night. I think that could be beneficial, especially if you don't have a Camargo in the lineup like they were missing, which is such a crucial part of the team.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it really kicked off that dominant win with Ali Musi scoring in the 8th minute of the game.
Yep.
And then York was just chasing, trying to generate offense, which kind of left some holes in the defense.
Yeah, obviously dominant fashion, like we said earlier. It was 4-1, dominant performance. But like you said, these are the players though that we want to be scoring. These are the players that are our key players, are our players that we rely on to get us the goals that we need to win games. Obviously, we are against Forge because Forge lost against Atletico Ottawa, and how that system works is the loser of the 1 and 2 seat plays the winner of the 3 and 4 seat. And obviously, we won the game, so we move on. We play Forge. Atletico Ottawa is waiting in the final. Do you think we can get our hands on that trophy or either get our spot into that final? Obviously, it's a very hard game. We're against a Forge team that is known for winning games and has beaten us in a final situation before. Obviously, this is the quote-unquote semi-finals. So do you think that a Cavalry team with the caliber that we have and also the experience of winning, obviously last year we did win the league, do you think that in this playoff format, and obviously we're going off of a win, do you think we can channel that winning energy to get our hands into that final?
I think that this team has struggled
Yep.
on the road all year, and we won't have another home game on the schedule for the season. So we have to finally perform away from home, away from those fans that they kind of feed off of.
Yep.
And I think it's been seen a lot this year that we've been very dominant in wins at home all season long, scoring lots of goals. And then the second you go on the road, all of that's gone. As soon as, one little slip up happens, then it's just a mess on the field. And I think if we can find some of that form from the road last season, it's possible we can get to the final and win. But Forge is going to be very hungry, having lost to us last season and having lost to Atletico. They're going to be very hungry to win that game. I don't think it'll be an easy game.
Yeah.
And for either team, it'll be very tough. I think a very defensive game.
A little cagey affair.
I don't think it'll be high scoring. I think whoever makes a mistake on defense will end up losing that game. So you'd really want your your top defenders like Dan Klomp and Callum Montgomery to start that game.
Yep.
So I think it really depends on the lineup and whether Forge comes out with that hunger that I think they will.
And I mean, also it goes down to, I think, one thing that I don't know if we don't lack the ability in the subs bench, but the one thing that we do lack is putting on the players at the certain times that we need them. I feel like Tommy Wheeldon Jr., our manager, sometimes is hesitant to make changes to his lineup, even though the game is only either we're only 2 goals down or 1 goal down and we need that goal. He's really stern on keeping his starting 11. And I mean, that's fine. Being very confident in your starting 11 is what you want that manager to be, or what that manager to basically, you want him to have confidence, right? But the one thing that I don't know is a lot of managers, they stick to their starting 11. And I feel like, if we are down starting in the half, down by 1 or down by 2 goals right at halftime, I feel like we should bring on some of our players. Obviously, we talked about Nico. I think Nico could bring a different atmosphere. Obviously, he's hungry for that starting spot, like we've said before, and he could be getting that in the future. But I think what he needs to do is, put him in, right? Take chances on these players that obviously haven't played as much games. But there's a lot of players, even Wailing. There's these players that we've, seen glimpses of magic, but they haven't played. Or they haven't gone off the bench until like the 89th minute, which is not helping them, nor is it really helping the team, right? And I feel like we need to play more of our subs early, or if we're down by a couple goals, earlier than usual, obviously. And because I think that those people could have a hunger to win, obviously they're hungry to kind of secure a spot in the future, right? So I feel like having them, getting them to play would be beneficial to our team.
I think sometimes he feels a little reactionary with his substitutions, where he won't make a change until the other team's made a change.
Yeah.
To try and, I don't know if it's trying to gain a stamina advantage over them, or to see what they do so he can try and counter it in some sort of way. But I think it's really hurt some players like Mael Henry, who last season, he was very explosive. He was looking like a potential breakout candidate into the team. And I think he's just like completely dropped off from all of his minutes from last season.
Yep.
And I think if he was a player that got a lot of minutes this year, like it looked like he was going to, coming off of a great last season, he could be a player that could come off the bench and make an impact like that. Whereas I think a lot of our bench players, if they got maybe a few more minutes in some of the games down the stretch, they could maybe gel with some of the players better. But I feel like it was very stuck into that starting 11 of all the veteran players that have been here for a while, trying to secure that playoff spot that maybe could end up dragging us down at the very end. Yeah. Which would be unfortunate, but I do think that going into next season, after this season, regardless of how it finishes, the team, I do think, will have some losses. Yep. I think that Dan Klump might be gone again, unfortunately. Yeah. I think it was maybe a bit of a short-term move trying to get game time again. Yeah. And it would suck if we lost a G.O.A.T and Tigney,
Yep.
who's been so good for us, but I feel like that could be another short-time player.
Yeah.
And having those kind of losses for next season, I think maybe, I don't know if Tommy would know that information already or not. Maybe he's wanting to play those guys more because he knows he's not getting them again.
Yeah.
But I feel like it could also be beneficial if he does know that those players are potentially leaving, to play some of those guys that would maybe step into those positions, like a Nico, who's very technically sound, and it's like his whole thing is very good with his ball skills, and he's been practicing that for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think that, I don't know whether he would fill in midfield, potentially a cam role, or maybe even switch onto the wing.
Yeah.
It would be beneficial for some of those younger guys that don't get a ton of minutes to maybe try and make an impact in the playoff game on Sunday, and show to Tommy that they can provide what the starters do, and that he doesn't need to wait so long to maybe make those substitutions.
Now, moving on to Europe, I want to talk about the Premier League. Obviously, the elephant in the room, like we say every single podcast, is Liverpool is on a 4-game losing streak within the Premier League. What's your thoughts on that? A team that is built on over 300 million euros that last summer, to now being below Man United at 7th place.
I think they lost their identity. They had a great identity last season. They were a very tough team to play. They were very good defensively. And then this season, coming off of a great year, they just decided to splash to cash and like completely change how their team has functioned. And I think that maybe they bought the wrong players. Isak has not shown anything for Liverpool.
Yeah.
Florian Wirtz has been pretty abysmal for his time. And I'm not too sure about Milos Kerkez. I haven't heard anything about him this year after he was a wonder kid last year.
Yeah.
So I think they've lost that identity that they built last season by bringing in so many new starters, and just kind of, I think, losing players like a Luis Diaz, who I don't think they realized how much of an impact he actually had on the team, because they sold him for so cheap. And they didn't even really think about keeping him.
No,
it was just immediately shoved off to the side when they wanted to bring new guys.
Harvey Elliott's the same way. They, instead of playing Harvey Elliott more, they decided to splash the cash on Wirtz, which obviously, if you go off of last season, Wirtz was an impeccable player. Same with Isak. Like, these players that Liverpool got weren't bad last season. Last season, they arguably, like you said, they probably had their best seasons, right? And now this season, I mean, Florian Wirtz is probably when they won, or Leverkusen won. But if you look at this, these are really good players. But yeah, there's no identity, right? It's like building a super team. It's the same thing with Real Madrid, what happened with them when they had Beckham, R9, Roberto Carlos, and all of these really, Luis Figo, like all these really good, big players, right?
For Real Madrid, you could even kind of see it last year.
Yeah.
When they spent all that money.
Yep.
And it's kind of working out now because they've all played together and they're starting to build that team mentality again. But I think spending too much in one summer, really, on paper, you're bringing all these world-class players, and in reality, it might not actually work how you think it will.
No. I mean, yeah, like we can talk a lot about how Liverpool's identity is completely lost, how Isak is underperforming, Wirtz is underperforming, and obviously they lost. Who'd they lose to again?
They lost 3-2 to Brentford.
Yeah.
And they were chasing the whole game.
Yeah.
It was only 3-2 because Mo Salah scored in the 89th minute to make it look a little bit better.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really a close game for most of it until Liverpool decided to really turn it on at the end of the game, which ended up not working well.
Which is exactly what they did during the Man United game as well.
I mean, 4 straight Premier League losses for a team that I think they only lost 4 last year.
Yeah, I believe they are now tied to the amount of games that they lost last season when they won in dramatic fashion, winning, I think, in like April. They got their, what is it now, 14th Premier League title, something like that. I don't know, 9 Premier League? Could be 9 Premier League titles, like, in the Premier League.
So I think it's an unexpected drop
Yeah.
off, big time unexpected drop off, because they were the title favorites again going into
know.
this season. But I think they just need to start working together a bit more again. They seem very disconjoint. I don't know the word there.
Discombobulated.
Disingenuous or something like that.
What?
I don't know what that means. I've heard it before though. But I think they're a team that's kind of lost what they were.
Yeah.
They lost what was special with them last year. And I think a team that's starting to find an identity a bit more right now would be of course your team, Man United.
Again, Man United is one question I have is the United Strand going to get his haircut, finally going to get his haircut if Man United wins 5 games in a row. We are on 3 games in a row now. It is not over. We have Notts Forest, I believe, and we have Tottenham as our next 2 games. But, obviously United Strand is another content creator who has a challenge saying that if Man United win 5 games in a row, I'll get a haircut, basically. So I won't get a haircut until Man United gets 5 games in a row. He's on over a year of days now. And Man United, this is the first time Man United in that time has won 3 games in a row. Now, it's too early to tell, but I would love to see him get a haircut in the middle of Old Trafford. Like Ruben Amorim in the middle of Old Trafford giving him a haircut.
Like the scene from Ted Lasso when they get Isaac to cut his hair.
Exactly.
Before he goes on a date.
Exactly.
It's a big performance in the middle of the stadium.
Do it at the before the next game, right? Like right before the next game, they sometimes do the ceremonies or whatever. Just have him in a chair in the middle of the of Old Trafford with the fans around him, and have Ruben Amorim cut his hair. I feel like that would be a monumental moment for our club that is built on monumental moments.
Would that be an even further turning point, a morale boost that could see them win the league?
It might be. I don't know. We might win the league. No, I mean, no.
It's not looking great for winning the league.
We're 6th place.
It's looking
you
good
might get Europe
for becoming, maybe more of a destination again. People don't see it as a club you go to die.
Yeah.
Maybe as a club you go as the top player in the world and thrive instead.
Yeah. Well, if we go back to the game, obviously Man United won their 3rd game in a row against Brighton on Saturday. It was a late game, actually. One of the last games of that day. And we won 4-2. But we owned it for a majority of the game, I would say. I would say majority of the game because we almost lost it. Now, starting of the game, or I would say almost lost it, but we almost lost our lead.
Scored 1 at the end.
We almost lost our lead, actually, or momentum, I should say. And it was looking like they could have scored, they scored 2, right? They scored one in the 80th, around the 80th minute mark, and then they scored 1 at the end of the game. But we were dominant for most of that game. Mateus Cunha's goal was one of the most, the best finishes I've ever seen. And obviously I'm a Man United fan, so I'm going to say that, but it was a beautiful finish. It was exactly what we bought him for, to have that style and class and that Brazilian flair, and he showed it that game. Obviously with that goal, beautiful goal. Casemiro, I didn't think that guy was alive, but he is. He's alive and kicking. And he did kick the ball. And it hit off of one of the Brighton players and went in the net. And we celebrated like it wasn't an own goal. And obviously it wasn't an own goal. It was said that it wasn't an own goal, but it probably should have been. But we celebrated that goal like we've won the Champions League. I mean, that alone shows that our team is really, striving to win. That every goal matters, right?
And of course, Mbuemo with the double in the game.
I love that guy.
He's really proving that he's not I don't know. He wasn't a bad purchase, I guess.
Yeah, he was
For a while there, it was looking not so great.
it was just looking a little bit like he has class, but he's just like typical comes to Man United and then just like doesn't show his class. But no, he showed it. And
There's a team that's definitely looking for a little bit of class in the Premier
yeah,
League. And there's a couple, obviously, at the
I
bottom of
mean,
the table.
your team.
That you have Wolves, you have West Ham, and you have Nottingham, all in the relegation zone with Burnley, Leeds, and Sunderland, who are
Is
like
it
in top of the table.
Is it going to be
basically.
a year where the relegated teams don't get automatically relegated after getting promoted the year before?
I mean, it's definitely looking like it.
Yep.
I think the only team that's not really shown that they maybe could
Yep.
by the end of the season would be Burnley.
Yep.
Even with their 3-2 win over Wolves on the weekend,
Mm-hmm.
which is big points for Burnley to stay out of the bottom of the table. But I just think that that's the only one that's kind of not shown enough to me.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I feel like they didn't spend enough in the summer to bring in those kind of players that would, solidify them like a Sunderland with Granit Xhaka.
Yeah.
And he's just been incredible for Sunderland. But, I feel like with Leeds, they have such that home.
Yep.
That home play will really keep them going this season.
Mm-hmm.
They're very hard to beat at home. They have one of the best fan bases in England.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that could keep Leeds up alone. I just don't know if Burnley has the same kind of fan elements that, a Sunderland or a Leeds have with that heavy support.
Yep.
That can keep them up. But, a team like Nottingham could get back on pace.
Yep.
With a new manager like Sean Dyche and take over that spot again from Burnley.
Yeah.
But Sean Dyche did lose his first Premier League game against Bournemouth 2-0. But he did win his first game in the Europa League against Porto 2-0.
Yep.
So it's very confusing. It's a lot like Ange.
Yep.
Ange won his first Europa League game and then lost in the Premier League.
But does Ange wear shorts in October? That's all I'm gonna say.
I don't think I've ever seen Sean Dyche wear something that's not shorts.
Yeah, me neither, to be honest. Well, obviously we're talking about Dyche and we're talking about him at Notts Forest, but he did manage your team, West Ham. What's happening at West Ham? A team that's been in the Premier League for a couple, 6 years now? And now they're looking more than ever like they are bound for relegation. What's your thoughts on that?
I think that they are struggling to find a starting lineup.
Yep.
That can win them games.
Mm-hmm.
Because it seems a lot of the time we score a goal, but it always comes right at the end of the game from someone that had come off the bench. But I'm not super worried about Nuno getting fired at this moment, because the club has said they're going to back him into January and spend a bunch of money again, but I don't even know if we have the money to spend. So I don't believe in that promise necessarily. But we've only picked up 4 points in 9 games this season. There's still not really a sense of direction in the team. And Nuno, I think he's trying to figure out that starting 11.
Yep.
Because he's put up a couple different ones in the last couple games, and none of them have worked. I think he just needs to try and stick with one instead of constantly switching out those guys that are starting to try and gain some momentum on Nottingham, trying to which team can pick up the pace first.
Yep.
And try and squeak out of the relegation zone, because it's looking like only one team is going to potentially get out of there.
Yeah.
Unless, things really change in the Premier League, which I don't think it's really ever been proven that they change that drastically throughout the season. Where, a team on 2 points and 20th is going to miraculously get unrelegated by the end of the year.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to take a lot of work for us to maybe get out of there.
Yeah.
I would hate to see us get relegated. I think it would mean that a lot of our players that are, maybe too good for our club,
Yep.
like a Paqueta, a Bowen, to want to force their way out. And I think that would even just further spiral us down in the wrong direction. And it would be maybe a mid-table finish in the championship at that point, with losing your captain, losing your top players.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's kind of seen with Southampton.
Yep.
They had a terrible season in the Premier League.
Yep.
And then they got relegated, and they sold a bunch of their players, and now they're at the bottom of the championship table.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very careful balance of when you do get relegated, not to try and bring in a bunch of money because you can sell those players now, like less, without as much of an impact maybe, because you don't need those kind of players to win in the championship. But maybe you do, because none of the relegated sides have done anything in the championship this season.
Do you think that if West Ham get relegated, that your top players would leave, or would they play for the badge and stay?
I definitely think a Paqueta would leave. A Bowen would be less likely to leave.
Yeah.
But I imagine most of our players wouldn't really hold a grudge against, leaving the club.
Mm-hmm.
A player like a Crescencio Somerville, who moved to West Ham from Championship Leeds to try and, start that Premier League career again, I don't think he'd want to go back down to the Championship and take a step back. So I think he'd be a player that we'd lose, and he's a player I'm really high on. I think he can make a big impact. But I don't think a lot of our players, like the Wan-Bissakas and the El Hadji Malik Doufs, would, and even Mateus Fernandez, who we bought from Southampton, I don't think any of those guys are going to go back down a level after playing in the Premier League. And I think it would be a very bad summer. We'd lose a lot of players, and it would be a rough year.
A bad Somerville.
I mean, he hasn't been that good this season, but
potentially
a potentially terrible summer for us. It would be tragic for the club.
Yeah.
Maybe it needs to happen so they can, try and find some sort of mentality again in the team. Because it just seems like everything's lost. And I really hope that the owners do come into the fan pressure and finally sell the team, because they just keep losing money on the team, and they see that they're losing money, and they don't want to invest anything else to try and make that money back. And it's just a downward spiral at this point.
Moving on to another league in Europe, I want to talk about Ligue 1. Because Ligue 1 this year, obviously, we've called it for years, and a lot of people have called it a farmers league. But this year is becoming really interesting. So there's only 4 points between 1 and 6th place, and actually 7th place as well. And the interesting thing this year is, of course, PSG is on the top. PSG is dominating in the Champions League. But one thing I could say is they're not dominating in the league this year.
PSG, I mean, they've been very good.
Yeah.
They're still first in the table. And that's seen beating Stade Brestois 3-0 with a Hakimi double.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of teams that are also performing very well this year in Ligue 1. Lens, who's now in 2nd. Marseille, Lille, Lyon. There's a lot of teams that, you usually think of those as the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th teams, which they still currently are in the table, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, I guess. I don't remember who's in 6th exactly. But I think it's kind of switching. It's kind of becoming more of an even playing field, maybe a bit more.
Yeah.
And I think it's a league that it's becoming less of a farmers league and more of a destination league where players want to play for some of those top French teams.
And I mean, you look at the other leagues around. The Bundesliga is kind of turning into that farmers league. I mean, it kind of has always been, but Bayern Munich is dominating in that. But with Ligue 1, Lens is coming up. Marseille is coming up. Marseille's 3rd, obviously losing to Lens, and Lyon, actually. So Lyon is in 4th in the table right now, and they beat Strasbourg in a dramatic fashion with a 90+1 winner.
Yeah, it was a close game all the way through, and then they finally spoiled the even riches, and they took all 3 points for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's Leon is a club that nearly folded last
I
year.
know. I thought they
Nearly
would
was
be
going to be in the second tier.
exactly.
They got kind of bailed out by the league. They were allowed to stay in the league, and now they're having a great season to finish in the Champions League spot, which they need to in order to make money back that they owe to various people around the footballing world. Because that's a team where if they don't perform well this season, I think it'd be a very similar situation to last summer where they could be in deep financial trouble again. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a team that's being kind of fueled by that this season.
Yep.
So just like I think even having, whether it be because of financial means, you have to have something that you're playing for. And it feels like there's a lot of teams around Europe that don't have that and aren't performing quite as well this season. And you could even see that in Germany, in the Bundesliga with Dortmund, who are in fourth in the table right now because they don't really have anything that they're playing for,
Yeah.
and they're kind of just there at the moment. They don't really have a top team. No one's really betting on them to win the league, and they're kind of just one of those teams that you always see at the top, but never is at the top. And I think Leon needs to be one of those teams that is at the top in their league, because without it, that they're really in trouble.
Obviously, they dethroned PSG in, I think it was 2018. They're the only team, I believe, to win it in the past like 10 years or something like that. PSG, of course, have dominated Ligue 1, and it is, I mean, PSG is a good team. They are dominant, like we said in the Champions League last episode, in the sense of they are playing really well. They're top of like the Champions League phase bracket, and they're really showing that they're good. They should be champions of Europe, right? But in this league, I think the main takeaway from Ligue 1 obviously being a little bit more fair this year, a little bit more competitive. And I think the really interesting thing about this is that that's what makes leagues interesting, right? Like we said before, we said this is an interesting year, but this is what makes leagues interesting. But like if you think about it, yeah, you look at PSG wins a lot. Look at Bayern Munich in Germany. Obviously, Bayer Leverkusen overthrowed them a couple years ago. But those leagues are interesting, but they're interesting in like certain ways. They're not interesting in like the competitive nature of the title. They're more interesting in the competitive nature of the, I think, striving to get top four is more interesting in those leagues, or trying to get not relegated, right? So in the Bundesliga especially, there's a lot of good teams that almost get relegated. And I think that journey from not get relegated is more important and interesting, in my opinion, than winning the league.
I mean, you can look at the team that's leading the league right now with Bayern.
Yeah.
And even without Harry Kane scoring this week, they still won 3-0.
Yeah.
And they have a new wonder kid that has come out and kind of excelled recently. I think he scored in the Champions League for them. And then this week, he scored a great goal against Mönchengladbach. He curled it into the top corner, and the goalie didn't even make an effort at it because it was such a perfect shot. But I think it's a team that's very, very good, obviously. They're having a great year.
Yeah.
But it's still a team that will give youth chances.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important.
Same here. I mean, we talked about with you at West Ham how they could get out of their rut maybe by playing more young players. Obviously, it's important. I mean, around Europe, we talk about building young talent and how academies are really important, right? They build young talent, but they also build young talent for the specific system and identity of each particular club the academy is affiliated with. And I feel like, yeah, But yeah, academy aside though, like if you don't play those players in the actual first team, playing first team minutes, playing in the Bundesliga, the Serie A, Liga and La Liga, or the Premier League, or any league in Europe for that matter, if you're not playing them, then the academy works. But a lot of those academy ballers, they leave the club when they don't get chances, right? And I feel like you lose out on a lot of future to your club because obviously you pick them up when they're young to grow them into the players that you want them to become, and you want them to play for your team, right? So I feel like, yeah, giving them more chances, any team giving them more chances. I mean, Real Madrid does, Barcelona does, and these teams thrive on that identity on giving young players a chance. And I feel like, yeah, that's really, really important. Moving on to the Serie A, or Italy, Italian football. Some dramatic affairs again. I mean, it's been actually a lot of interesting wins around Europe. But I want to talk about Napoli. So Napoli was playing Inter Milan, huge game. Napoli wins that game comfortably 3-1. They went up 2-0 really early into the game. And, a couple takeaways from that game is obviously Napoli now is top of the table. And obviously they went last year. So they are really showing that they're the team now. Besides the AC Milan, the Inter Milans, and the Juves, they're the team that is they got the torch passed to them. And they are ready to try to win it again. What's your thoughts on Napoli, this game, or their season so far?
Napoli's having a really good year in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of Italy, not quite as good as they would have hoped. But, seeing a Napoli team truly succeeding in the Italian leagues and Italian cup competitions,
Mm-hmm.
they're doing very well, but it's not a runaway.
No.
Like in France many years.
Yeah.
Italy is a very competitive league.
Mm-hmm.
There's 5 or 6, maybe even 7 teams that consistently could finish in the top 4 spots.
Yep.
With both Milan teams, Napoli, Juve, Lazio, Roma. I mean, you can even throw a Fiorentina in there as a really good team now. I think it's a very competitive league at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be even seen this season where Napoli's only in first because of goal differential.
Yeah.
And Roma is actually level on points with them this year. It's, I think, a closer league than a lot of people think.
Yeah.
And I think it's another one of those leagues where the title race is actually important.
Mm-hmm.
And not just, whether you can stay in the league, where that is an important battle in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
You can see a lot of smaller teams that do creep up their way into the Serie A.
Yeah.
And with this season, Pisa FC, I don't remember them ever being in Serie A.
And of course Palmero and other teams like that.
They're in the league this year, and of course AC Milan had to spoil what could have been a very important win for them this season, where they're sitting 19th in the table with only 4 points. But Milan 90 plus 3 goal got a draw in that match and took away 2 very important points for Pisa, which could have seen that team maybe stay in the league by the end of the season with a big win over a good team like that.
Yeah.
But I think, the good teams will always be good in Italy. I don't think any of the teams that you ever see at the top will ever really finish towards the bottom.
No.
Whereas, in the Premier League last season, teams such as, Man United and Tottenham, which are considered usually pretty top teams, were very close to being relegated at the bottom of the table.
Yeah, I was looking at the table. I'm like, yeah, we might get relegated this season, which obviously for Man United would be completely devastating for the club and its identity, and just kind of, haven't been relegated since the 1980s. So we want to keep that streak alive. But in that Napoli game, Kevin De Bruyne went off injured. So Napoli's new hero from Manchester City, who came in the summer transfer window, went off with an injury, and it's not looking great.
He did score before the injury, though.
He did.
He did score a penalty.
He did score a beautiful penalty before the injury, and then he went off with what it looks like a lower body injury, I believe.
In the last couple years, he's had a couple pretty significant injuries, and I think it's just something that you see with a player who's really left it out all on the pitch for so many years.
Yeah.
Where towards the end of their career, they start getting more and more injuries.
Yeah.
And I think it wraps up a career before maybe it should have ended.
Yeah, well, he's how old?
He's mid-30s,
Mid-30s, right? But he's been battling with his injury for a while, and that's one of the kind of the reasons why he left City. And, Napoli took him as kind of like a gamble because obviously he's good. I mean, not gambling on the skill that you can probably get from him, but you're gambling on his physical fitness. And he's injured. He was seen crying while coming off, so maybe this injury is even worse than we thought. Maybe he's out for the season. We don't know. But obviously, that's a big blow to Napoli, who's kind of seen De Bruyne as this new light to the club. Obviously, he's older in age, but he brings that senior experience and also just impeccable ability. Obviously, in my opinion, I'm a Man United fan, but De Bruyne is probably one of the best midfielders I've ever seen play the game. Just his physical ability, his passing ability is top notch. But another person scored that, because I'm a Man United fan, I may have a connection to, and that is Mr. Scott McTominay. He scored, obviously coming off of last season, which was really good. He scored, and now he's he's the new hero at Napoli.
He's just excelled at Napoli, really.
Yeah.
It's been a very good stint.
Mm-hmm.
He won league MVP in his first year, and I don't think anybody bet on that one coming into the season. And then even this year, he's just been incredibly good for them, and he's kind of come into that role of someone that they rely on week in and week out. I mean, he scored 2 goals in the league this year.
Mm-hmm.
He's been very, very reliable in the midfield for them.
Yeah.
And I think he's a player that they don't want to lose, especially with a KDB injury. He's going to become even more important for them. And another big player on that Napoli team is Zambo Anguissa. He's had an incredible year so far. He's got 4 goals already.
Wow.
And he's kind of becoming a world-class footballer at Napoli.
And obviously, like we said, Napoli is having a great season. I want to quickly touch on the El Clasico in La Liga. Obviously, the El Clasico was on the weekend. The biggest game in La Liga, Real Madrid against FC Barcelona. And it was a cagey affair, to say the least. But Real Madrid came out winners of that game.
Mbappe got another goal this season.
Mm-hmm.
A big one in that game. He also had one ruled out earlier in the game and missed a penalty, so he could have had a hat trick in that game.
He's back, like we said before.
He's truly becoming that world-class player that Real Madrid thought would win them the league last season.
Ballon d'Or caliber player right now, in my opinion.
He's having maybe his career best year.
Yep.
Regardless of league.
Mm-hmm.
And he put up a lot of goals in France.
Yep.
So to say that it's a very special season.
Yeah.
They're a very strong team this year.
Mm-hmm.
They're sort of finding that identity after bringing in so many superstars last year. And I think it's a team that excels by having a great manager managing them too.
Yeah. Obviously, they got the new manager this year, and Xabi Alonso, and they're really fighting. There was some drama at the end of the El Clasico. Did you hear that?
I heard a little bit about something, but I can't remember exactly what I heard.
So Pedri got a red card at the end of the game. He was, again, on a yellow. And then he got another yellow to see him off for like just a bad challenge. But then during the end of the game, there was a series of multiple yellows for pushing, shoving, and multiple altercations. I don't know if there was like a full on fight. I don't think there was, but there was some altercation between the goalkeeper Lunin, so the Ukrainian goalkeeper, and the bench that saw him get a red. So he went off as well. So it just shows kind of how cagey that El Clasico affair is, and kind of the El Clasico of old. Real Madrid and Barcelona obviously really heavily dislike each other. It's the biggest derby within Spain, but it just kind of shows that old school mentality of that rivalry, and really just sets kind of just it kind of shows why we love the derby matches so much around the world, right?
And towards the end of our episode here, I just wanted to talk about a little bit of Europa League, because we're always focusing on the Champions League.
Yep.
But it's been a tough run for Rangers in the Europa League this year.
It's been a tough run for Rangers in the league as well.
They have not won in the Europa League. They lost 3-0 to Brann, a tiny little team out of Norway. And it's really looking rough for them this season in all facets. But some big wins for Braga, Lyon, and FC Midtjylland see them all three being undefeated at the moment.
Wow.
In the league. And it's really important for Lyon to do well so they can bring in money.
Yep.
But for a Rangers team to not have won at all, especially against teams you would chalk up as fairly easy wins for them, you'd think. It can also be seen in Red Bull Salzburg and Nice out of France. Neither one of those teams have won a game, and they're all three on 0 points at the very bottom of the table.
That's crazy too, because Nice obviously were doing really well last season, and that's just kind of weird to see that they are on the bottom. Obviously, my Man United is not in the Europa League or not in any European league, and I'm a bit sad about that. With that being said, I'm going to end our show today. Obviously, this show is episode 6. If you want to hear it live again, you can come back next Wednesday for episode 7. And for all of that, I mean, if you missed this episode or missed most of this episode, you can go on YouTube on Yellow Pod, and you can see all of our short clips and our long form podcast videos. With that being said, I'm Liam.
I'm Zach. It was a great episode. We look forward to you listening again next Wednesday.
Do you want to do a little sign off, Zach?
Bonjour, au revoir, good night.